I feel like it's been long enough since I've seen the movie, and also long enough that I've had time to properly process seeing it twice, but I really, really enjoyed Longlegs, which I know was like sort of a hot topic in the horror community now, I would say, because a lot of people are debating if it's actually horror or if it's more of just a crime thriller. Let me preface this by saying I am not someone who likes to watch movies that I know will scare me. Despite being someone that does the majority of their content creation around horror movies, I hate being scared, probably because I'm such an anxious person. Why would I willingly want to make myself more anxious for the duration of a 90-minute movie? So I was honestly really hesitant to go and see this movie in theaters because I knew that it was being sort of marketed as the scariest movie of the decade. So I was a little worried to go see it in theaters, but I'm really glad I did. I saw it twice. I saw it once on opening night, and then I went a couple days later with my dad to rewatch it, and I took a notebook to sort of take notes while the film was going on. So warning for spoilers begins here. If you haven't seen the movie, you should probably go see it and then come back and do this. The movie starts with maybe one of the best openings to a movie that I've ever seen, especially recently in terms of like horror movies and stuff. I feel like this first scene really solidified what the movie was going to be. Literally, as soon as it started, I was just filled with this like insane, heavy dread that I knew something bad was going to happen. I've never actually seen a movie in theaters like this that made me feel so full of anxiety and dread. It felt like the movie itself was going to reach through the screen and kill me. I know that's like dramatic, but like that's the way the movie made me feel. Longlegs' first like half face appearance is so crazy. I cannot applaud the marketing team for deciding to not show Longlegs' face in any of the materials leading up to the movie. So literally the first time you see it is in the movie. They released a clip a couple days before it came out of Micah Monroe seeing Nicolas Cage in the makeup for the first time, and her heart rate went from 76 beats per minute to 170 beats per minute. So I was really scared to see what he was going to look like, especially where they hid his face for so much of the movie. Here in this opening sequence, you see maybe a millisecond of what it looks like, but it haunted me the whole runtime till we started seeing his face more, what he was going to look like. I was so scared for them to actually show what he was going to look like. It was crazy. The title sequence right after that little jump scare is great, just with the aspect ratio box stretching and getting bigger while a T-Rex song plays. I would love to know sort of the lore, I guess, behind why Longlegs is such a T-Rex fan. Not that I want to like empathize with the character at all, but I do want to know more of his backstory. I don't feel like this movie needs a sequel or a prequel. I think it's great as a standalone, but finding out more information about the character would be really, really cool. Maybe there was something I missed in the Birthday Murders website, because I didn't really look into that. I didn't do a whole lot of pre-research for this movie, because I honestly didn't know if I was going to go see it, and it was a little bit of a last-minute thing for me to go see it. So I'm glad I did. So it starts with our protagonist, Lee Harker, at the FBI headquarters, I guess. And they're all about to be sent out in pairs to go find this other serial killer. First off, a whole lot of serial killers in this town. Thank God they have their own FBI division, because it seems like they have two on the go right now. So probably a good thing that, I don't know, the FBI headquarters is in that town. So when they're talking about showing partners, they do show who Lee's partner is going to be. And I was honestly like, oh, great. Like, is this guy going to have like a crush on her, and is it going to be like uncomfortable and weird? Watching it back the second time, I realized they cut to him because she has like that sixth sense, which we find out later is like the devil and Longlegs in her head sort of telling her these things. She knew who her partner was going to be. And I loved that. They go, and Lee sort of has a premonition and gets an idea of what house it is, and then her partner goes up and knocks on the door and is shot. I would love to know why. I mean, maybe this is a stupid question, but how did Longlegs or the devil know which house it was? It doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of satanic imagery in that house. So I'm just wondering if maybe the devil just knows where all the serial killers in the world are, or if Longlegs knew of this guy. I'm not really sure. I love the framing in this movie. There's so many shots where you're trying to keep an eye on the character in focus, but you're also scanning the background. And I found in so many scenes, I was scanning the background, waiting for something to jump out and scare me, because that's how much anxiety this movie caused me. The shotgun jump scare before Lee's partner gets shot is really, really, really good. Lee goes in the house, finds the serial killer. He's sitting on the bed with his hands up. I need to figure out which actor that was, because he looked familiar. There were a lot of times in this movie where I was like, is that Osgood Perkins? Because he's the director, and I feel like he has a cameo in this later in the movie, but I feel like his face is shown in the movie. So after Lee does this, it cuts to like her in an FBI interrogation room, and she has to do like one of those Rorschach, I hope I said that right, tests where they show her things and she has to say the first thing that comes to her head. And I thought her answers were really interesting because it almost gives away like sort of the plot of the movie. She says camera, table, legs, tiger, door, mother, father, piano. So the camera is obviously talking about her Polaroid camera. Table, I mean, that could have a whole lot of things. Legs, long legs, obviously. Tiger is the only one that sort of bewilders me. Or not bewilders me, but it's like, what is the meaning of that? And then door, Longlegs is behind that locked door in her house that leads to the basement. Mother, obviously her mother's involved. Father, when she sees an upside down triangle, which we know she says is sort of the symbol of the devil. So it does sort of give away that someone is working with her mother in a sense, because like obviously a mother and a father would be a pair. And also, Lee has no father in the movie, so, you know, it's interesting that when she sees that upside-down triangle associated with the devil, she says father. And then finally, the last word she says is piano. And I think I saw someone on Twitter say that on the Birthday Murders website, but all the families that were killed, the daughter had a little red piano in her room, and they see that in Lee's room in the flashbacks. So then we meet sort of Lee's superior, Agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood, who my boyfriend instantly recognized as Dr. Robert Leeds from Sex and the City, who was one of Miranda's boyfriends for a couple of episodes. I was like, there's no way that's him. And then we checked after the movie, and yes, it was. So mad props to that. And then there is an agent who is also, and then there is a female Asian agent whose name is Agent Browning. And one thing I noticed about her is that her cheekbones were very similar to Longlegs' cheekbones. So I don't know if maybe that was intentional, that her face structure was a little bit similar to what he looked like in the makeup. Then they talk about the Horn family that was killed. And that felt like a little Twin Peaks reference. There was something else on the Birthday Murder website that talked about sycamore trees, which is a big symbol in Twin Peaks. And I feel like there's a lot of similarities between the two. So I wouldn't be surprised if having a family called the Horns is, you know, a reference to like the Horn family from Twin Peaks. So then Lee is assigned to the Longlegs case, and she gets to work sort of sorting through the evidence. She puts out 31 cue cards, which I cannot figure out why 31 specifically. It feels like, I know they said it's been happening over 30 years, I think, but I'm interested to see why she put out 31 specifically. Then we get a little sequence of one of the 911 calls that one of the fathers that was involved with one of the murders said. And it was a little weird because he was like, the best time to do it is when her eyes are closed, talking about killing his daughter. But a lot of people are saying there's similarities to sort of like, you know, another crime. I won't say it because I don't want YouTube to like blacklist this video. And then sort of tying in with the doll, making them forget what happened. This is all in a sort of a dream sequence I think Lee has afterwards, and she sees all this blood going down a drain. And I didn't really know the meaning of that, but then I guess thinking about what her mother does, she would probably come home and have to wash all the blood off her. So maybe it was like a foretelling of that, of someone washing blood off themselves. So then Lee wakes up because Agent Carter wants to go out for a drink in a platonic way. And there's only a handful of cue cards on the floor in front of her. So I'd love to know the sorting process she had for that. At this point, when I went to the movie with my dad, he leaned over and he was like, she looks a lot like Ella Purnell. And I was like, so true. Big year for big-eyed young women with brunette hair and ponytails with bangs. So after Lee gives Carter some information on Longlegs that she sort of deciphered from all the evidence, she drives him home and has to go in and meet his family. Very interested as to why they always refer to his daughter as Miss Ruby Carter. After that, Miss Ruby invites Lee to look at her room, and I noticed this, or someone pointed it out on Twitter and I read it, but when Lee is sitting on the bed, she's sitting on the bed like a doll would, like very stiff, and, you know, she doesn't really move a whole lot. I found that was interesting. And then Carter's wife, who's Ruby's mom, you know, tells her to go to bed, and then Lee goes home, and we see her smoking in her car, and there's a song playing. No one's pointed out what song it is yet. I haven't Shazammed it to see what song it is, but I would love to know the thinking behind that. We also only see her smoke in this one sequence, and I don't know, I feel like if I was a smoker, the stress I would be under working on this case and then finding all these personal ties to it, I would also be smoking heavily while working. I also found it interesting that Lee decided to buy the scariest house in town. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere, seemingly. There's one other house in the distance, but it's this big scary log cabin that she lives in all by herself. Like, I don't know, FBI salary must be good, and she must have, like, no student loans or anything. So then Lee calls her mom, and then some spooky stuff starts happening, and she looks outside and sees a figure in the woods. I thought right off the bat the figure was her mom in the woods, and I was like, how was she on the phone with her mom seconds ago, but then also seeing the figure in the woods, because no one really has cell phones yet. But then I realized it's probably the devil or something. And then just home invasion stuff is so scary. Like, when she's looking out, like, into her house from outside and she sees Longlegs walk across her living room, that was terrifying, and that has instilled a newfound paranoia in me that I'm going to turn around and Longlegs is going to be in my house. Home invasion scenes when you're home alone and in the middle of nowhere are literally so scary. I think that's why the Strangers movies do so well. So then Lee goes back to her desk and has a birthday card from Longlegs saying don't open till the 14th, but obviously she opens it right away, probably so that he would have had time to do another murder before she actually opened it, but she doesn't obey him and opens it anyway. And then there's sort of like a poem inside, or like a cryptic text that translates to, if you tell anyone that you got this, I'm gonna kill your mom. It actually takes so long to see Longlegs' face in this movie, which I think really helps build with the dread, as I was saying earlier, of sort of what his character does and has done. Like, he's obviously gotta be like a monster and stuff, so I think keeping him hidden for the majority of the movie is really good to build up sort of a big climax when we see him for the first time. Carter and Lee go to the Camera family farm, and they're checking out the farmhouse, because that's sort of where Longlegs' text has told them to go and investigate. And then when they go upstairs and they find this cross on the ground, there's two beams of light coming in from the windows. And it's a really beautiful shot. And I think the two lights are supposed to sort of represent, you know, there's two people involved with this, is Longlegs and Lee's mom, because the doll hidden under the floorboards is right in the middle. I thought that was a really cool symbolism thing. And then we find Carrie and Camera's doll hidden under the floorboards. I'm interested to know where the rest of the family's dolls went. They never really mentioned that. Like, the Horns family, where did that doll go? Was it just specifically Carrie Ann's doll that was hidden because she was still alive? And then that autopsy guy says it was human hair, so, like, whose hair are they using? My suspicion is Lee's mom, because she has really, really long hair. So that makes me think that she grows it to a certain length, cuts it, gives it to Longlegs, and he uses that for the dolls and, like, dyes it. So then after that sequence, we see Longlegs for the first time, and he goes to the hardware store and is buying stuff to make the dolls. And it's like, oh my god, like, you're not even hiding your appearance at all. Like, you're a serial killer and you're just walking into a hardware store and getting bullied by a teenage girl. Like, it's crazy. He doesn't, like, no one knows who he is or what he looks like, so he can just go out in public and do whatever he wants. It's insane. The teenage girl at the counter, who is played by Osgood Perkins' daughter, Probably is one of the best side characters in the movie. Just when Longlegs starts being weird to her and she's like, Dad, that gross guy is back. Then we get our first musical number of the movie, which is Longlegs singing and screaming a T-Rex song in his car. I mean, in retrospect and out of context, the singing scenes in the movie are really funny. But in the moment, it's like, oh my god, this person has fucking lost their minds. Like, they are crazy and I am scared. So Carter and Lee head to the mental hospital where Carrie Ann is being held. Because, you know, she's seen some shit and obviously cannot function in a normal society. They say she's been in a catatonic state since she got there. And they have this very flamboyant sort of head of the hospital who is the second best character in this movie and really steals the scene he's in and provides a little bit of relief because we've just seen Longlegs for the first time. People are a little creeped out by his appearance. I'm sure it's a little shocking. So having this scene was nice. I feel like this film has funny moments, but it's blended really well with the horror. So it's not a horror comedy, but there is comedy tied to the horror of it, if that makes any sense. And then we get Kiernan Shipka's scene. She's been in a couple of Osgood Perkins' other movies. And, you know, she, like, destroys her small amount of screen time, like, in the best way possible. She does so well in this monologue that they only needed to do one take of, and she got it in the first take. We sort of get Carrie Ann's backstory. But as she's telling the backstory, we see her talking about herself as if she's the doll. So I'm wondering if she still does see herself as the doll. The way she's sitting is similar to the pose that they find the doll in the farmhouse. And then we find out that Longlegs came to visit her yesterday and wrote Lee's name down on the sheet. And then Lee starts asking about Longlegs, and like, her demeanor just immediately changes. She's been like sort of deadpan monotone for most of this, and then as soon as Lee's like, you know, what did he look like, she's just like, I don't ever want to forget him. Like, it's this crazy sequence. Then Carrie Ann calls Lee a dirty, flirty old angel bitch, which I feel like would be a really good Instagram bio. And then we go back to the FBI headquarters, and I feel like this film has really solidified where it is sort of in time periods in the 90s, because of the gigantic photo of Bill Clinton on the wall behind Carter's desk. I've seen people make the joke that, like, every time they show the picture of Bill Clinton in the background, it should be slightly bigger than it was last time. And I think that's really funny. So then after 2 phone calls, we finally get to see Lee's mom. And she is a hoarder, you know, probably because she's got stuff going on. Because of the life she has. At this point in the movie, it made me realize how much I love the editing and the pacing of it. And then we do see that priest on the TV I was talking about earlier that I'm pretty sure is Osgood Perkins in a cameo. Once it comes out on VOD and I can, like, zoom in a bit more or look at it longer, I'm sure someone will confirm it online. And then Lee is sort of, like, trying to poke and prod at her mom to get information on her 9th birthday when Longlegs came to the house. And her mom has sort of wiped it from her memory, as she tells Lee, but we know she hasn't. And then Lee goes upstairs to look at her stuff from when she was a kid, and she finds this chest that has her old Polaroid camera in it, takes it home and starts going through it, and, you know, is going through the pictures she took as a kid. And then as soon as she sees the one of Longlegs, the jump scare gave me, like, physical damage. Like, I lost about 25 hit points. It is so good and so scary. It goes on for, like, longer than a jump scare should be in the best way possible. Like, you see the picture, you see Longlegs fall down, you see, like, the nun and all this, like, rainbow blur stuff. It's such a good jump scare. When I was watching the movie for the second time and I saw it again, like, it made me feel so sick to my stomach in a good way. And it's just like this heaviness that starts weighing on you that's like, oh my god, like, she's working on this case, but Longlegs has known her basically her entire life, and he's been there all along. Then we get sort of the full sequence of Longlegs meeting Lee and her mom when she's little, and he sings this song. And as of today, which is about a week after the movie came out, it has become a meme on TikTok. Let me in now, let me in now, let me in now, and it can be now. And I have been having a good chuckle over it. When I saw the scene in the theater, I was like, this is really weird and scary. And, you know, I would be freaked out by this guy if this happened to me. But using the scene out of context with just him singing is really funny. And I've had a good chuckle of people doing TikToks to that song, I guess. It's kind of the song of the summer. Brat summer is over and Longlegs summer has begun. So then Lee takes the Polaroid to Carter and is like, this is our guy, like, we gotta bring him in. And then we see Longlegs at the bus stop with 2 suitcases and a backpack. What is he doing? Where is he going? I know they say it later in the movie what he actually has in his backpack. I think it's notebooks full of just Satan stuff. But it's very funny that he packed all that, you know, to go to the FBI, because obviously he's still got a connection to Lee and probably knew that they were coming for him. But also him going to the bus stop is really funny. Like, where were you gonna go, dude? Where were you gonna go? One other thing I noticed on my second time around, and I need someone to confirm this for me, but I don't remember if sort of this whole final climax sequence, part 3 of the movie, takes place on January 13th or 14th. I noticed every time they mentioned January 13th would be the next killing, Agent Carter, like, winces, and it's almost like the color drains from his face, because that's Ruby's birthday. I don't know if they said that Lee and Miss Ruby share a birthday. I feel like where they mentioned the 13th so much that it would be the 13th when it takes place, but it could also be the 14th. I probably need to watch this again, but feel free to confirm it for me if you remember, and that would be super helpful. So then we have the scene of Lee interrogating Longlegs. A lot of people have seen a little snippet of this scene because when they released the sort of sequence with Micah Monroe's heartbeat, this is the scene that it's from. It's her seeing him for the first time. But then it does end with, you know, Longlegs giving away the information that Lee's mom is involved. And then he smashes his face on the table till he dies, which is a crazy sequence. So then we are at it feels like this movie has like 3 different climaxes, which I love, and it doesn't feel repetitious at all, or like that it's building and building and building and building and no payoff at all. So then we go to Lee's mom's house. Agent Browning and Lee go. It is so crazy intense, and you know, when we see Lee's mom coming out from behind Agent Browning's car, just like the gasps in the theater. Like, I think someone was like, oh no, in like the opening night showing of it. And then she just shoots her. Meanwhile, Lee is going through the house and the Price is Right theme song is playing. I was looking on the IMDb page today, and actually, despite the fact that this movie takes place in the 90s, they were using the Price is Right theme song that they didn't start using till 2007. But obviously, I think more people would recognize that. I want to know the differences between the two. I don't know, I didn't know The Price is Right had more than one theme song. And it's also kind of funny, just like this tense scene where she's going through her childhood home and, you know, she finds the basement door open and she sees her mom outside killing her colleague, I guess, and The Price is Right theme song is playing. Very funny. So then Lee goes outside and sees her mother with her shotgun in front of the doll of Lee as a kid. Very interested to know how Lee's doll held up after so many years, because that was when she was 9, so that would have been back in the 70s. I think they say 1974 or 5. And the doll is in, like, pristine condition. So, like, did the doll get remade or something? Another stupid question. I want to know why the mom felt like she could free Lee now and shoot the doll's head. How did she even know about that? That it's this, like, did Longlegs give her, like, a doll making lesson and was like, this is the metal ball that I put in their heads to make the devil control them so that they don't remember anything that happened? But it seems like even though Lee's mom frees her from the devil or Longlegs, that she is still, a follower or still under that sort of curse thing. And then we do get the backstory of the mom being involved, and we see her, bringing the doll to people's houses and making sure that they all die. Very executed well. Alicia Witt did so good in this role, and I'm glad that they casted an actress that they could have both play sort of as a younger mother and an older mother without really, like, they didn't do like goofy old woman makeup on her to make her look older. It was very subtle, but works really well when it cuts between her at both ages. I really, really liked that. Scenes where they show the black sheet over the doll and the yellow eyes fade in, you see that? Like, that was really good the first time, but then by the end it got kind of gimmicky. It feels like that's a reoccurring thing that happens in horror movies a lot, just like yellow eyes, like fading in and then fading out to scare you. But by my second time around, once this scene hit, I was like, okay, that looks a little goofy. This movie does dreadful sequences really well. Like, when Lee wakes up in the basement and it's Longlegs' lair, God, it's just like this heaviness that was like in my chest that I felt. And then even during the interrogation sequence, when Longlegs is like, you were 20 when you decided to go into law enforcement, and we all had a laugh about it. It's like, oh my God, you've been, the man downstairs to her whole life. It's just like, it made me want to like rip my ribs out. Because it's just like, oh my God, you've been there the whole time right under her feet. There is a really great moment before she goes down to the interrogation room where she asks where he's being held. And I think Agent Carter or Browning says, like, he's right below your feet. And it's like, oh my God, the man downstairs. That's done so well. So back to where we are in the movie. Lee has gotten upstairs. The phone is ringing, and this voice over the phone says, like, oh, don't forget it's like Miss Ruby's birthday. I was watching Possessed by Horror's review of the film, and, I never picked up on this. I was like, I wonder who is saying that on the other line of the phone. But then she was like, like, maybe her mom always asks who's calling her, despite the fact that she says they never have visitors or anything, because it's actually the devil she's talking to. So that's why she has to ask when Lee calls who's calling, or just, answers very blankly, because it's either her daughter on the other end of the phone or it's the freaking devil. So I do think now, in retrospect, it is the devil on the phone talking to Lee. Then Lee gets in Longlegs' car, which is hidden in her mother's garage, and drives to the Carter's house. There's a really great parallel between Longlegs screaming in his car after the hardware store thing, like singing a T-Rex song, versus Lee just doing a guttural scream as she drives. So then Lee pulls up to the Carter's house, and no one else is there. If it was a birthday party, you'd think there'd be more people involved from like her school or whatever. I don't know if maybe the actual party happened and, this is just like the doll controlling them saying it's time for the party. This final sequence of the film is kind of crazy. I mean, you know what's gonna happen, and it's very heavy, but it's still like, oh my God, the whole time. Because they're all under control of the doll. They can't hear anything Lee is saying, and the mom is like, the mother's already dead, the girl is next. Like, the father probably far gone as well, because all he has to do is off himself. You can sort of see them wincing as they talk, because they're not in control of themselves. Ruby's mom is like, oh, honey, don't you have to go cut the cake? Agent Carter is like, I have to go cut the cakes, and then the mom sort of like winces and grabs at her throat, because obviously that's probably where she's going to get, slashed. And they also said cakes, plural, meaning Ruby and her mother. That dialogue is absolutely crazy, because it's just like, they're not explicitly saying what's happening, but by the way things are going, you kind of figure out what's going to happen, and it's written really, really well. So Carter and his wife go into the kitchen, and she is killed, and then Carter comes out to kill his daughter. Lee shoots him, he dies, and then the mother sort of freaks out, takes a thing out to stab Lee with, but Lee shoots her, and where the bullet hit, blood starts dripping down her face, and it's in the shape of an upside down cross, which is a little cliche, but I thought was really good in the moment. And then Lee tries to shoot Ruby's doll, obviously to free her from this curse, but either she ran out of bullets or her gun was jamming. She pulls it multiple times. I wanted to know if maybe she's still somehow under the spell, if you can call it that, and thinks she shot the doll's head, because then she leaves after that. And I feel like if it was really her, she would have done anything to smash the doll's head. So who knows? It does sort of leave it open-ended, as if there's going to be some sort of sequel or continuation, which I don't really want. I want this movie to be a standalone thing. I don't want this to become a franchise. And then the movie ends with Longlegs sitting at the interrogation table, and he says, "Hail Satan," and blows a kiss. And I thought that was a really nice way to end the movie. It's goofy almost, like this big tense moment, and like this family being murdered, and then it's just like this little laugh at the end, and then immediately into T-Rex's song, Bang the Gong, Get It On. The credits roll in reverse, like the opposite way the credits normally roll, which I thought was really, really, really good. And, you know, both times after I saw the movie, I was like, that was great. Like, yes, I felt this immense sense of dread and fear for most of the runtime, but oh my gosh, it's so good. And I'm so puzzled by people who didn't like it. And I would love to know more why people didn't like it. I feel like the third act is probably the weakest part of the movie. I can't think of another way this movie could have ended. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. And if you haven't seen it yet, I don't know why you watched this, because I just gave the whole movie away. Yeah, if you saw Longlegs, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video that won't take me 3 months to make. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.